leftists are idiots. Idiots. They're not about business. They're not about growing the WNBA. They're about diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is insanity, what they're doing to Caitlin Clark.
The battle between Adidas and Nike for women's basketball's brightest star, Caitlin Clark, just turned into a full-blown war. Adidas dropped a game-changing offer, forcing Nike to scramble and rethink its entire strategy. But while Nike managed to lock Clark down with a $28 million deal, the question remains, did they already lose the battle for her legacy? Because this isn't just about shoes, it's about power, value, and the rising force of women's sports.
Nike struck absolute gold when they signed Caitlin Clark to an 8-year, $28 million endorsement deal. So why in the world are they ignoring her? At the start of this year's WNBA season, it was announced that Caitlin Clark signed a massive endorsement deal with Nike. This deal was for 8 years, $28 million with a signature sneaker included.
Caitlin Clark has set the sports marketing world buzzing with her record-breaking endorsement deal. The WNBA rookie sensation recently signed an 8-year, $28 million contract with Nike, making it the biggest sneaker deal for a female basketball player. And if that's not impressive enough, the deal comes with a signature shoe, cementing her status as a rising icon in women's sports.
The deal is the richest sponsorship contract for a women's basketball player.
She deserves it!
But before Nike locked her down, Adidas made a bold move. They offered Clark a 4-year deal worth $6 million, complete with a signature shoe. On paper, it sounded significant, but for someone of Caitlin Clark's caliber, it just wasn't enough. Clark's star power was already undeniable. She shattered college scoring records, outshining athletes across both men's and women's basketball. Adidas's offer, while notable, fell short of matching Clark's growing marketability. So, what did Nike do? At first, their approach seemed half-hearted. Critics pointed out that Nike wasn't doing enough to capitalize on Clark's popularity. That all changed when Adidas entered the picture. Nike quickly realized they couldn't afford to lose her. After she earned the Rookie of the Year award, Nike went all in. A massive billboard celebrating her achievements appeared, signaling their commitment to making Clark the face of their women's basketball line. This back and forth between Nike and Adidas reflects something bigger. Women's sports are becoming a goldmine for major brands. For years, female athletes have been overlooked when it comes to big endorsement deals. But Caitlin Clark's deal proves that times are changing. Brands are starting to see the value and influence of female athletes, and they're willing to invest millions to secure those partnerships. However, Adidas didn't just walk into this game. They stormed the court with a game-changing offer for Caitlin Clark. It was nearly an invitation for Clark to co-create her own brand. They offered her creative control, input on the design process, and a voice in shaping her image. Most athletes can only dream of this kind of partnership. But Adidas understood the moment. Today's stars want more than a paycheck. They want a stake in their legacy. And the financial perks? They were mouth-watering. Adidas promised a faster timeline for her signature shoe, putting it in fans' hands far earlier than Nike's delayed plans. Suddenly, Nike's $28 million 8-year deal didn't look so special. Here's where things start to look messy for Nike. They had Caitlin Clark locked in. She was ready. All Nike had to do was seize the moment. Instead, they sat back and played it slow. Nike's plan was to delay Clark's signature shoe release until 2026, maybe even 2027. That's years away for a rookie whose debut season was nothing short of legendary. Clark was everywhere, breaking records, filling arenas, and selling Indiana Fever jerseys at lightning. To her brand, but Nike acted like they were still on the fence. They rolled out no high-profile campaigns, no major promotions, nothing. It was as if they were waiting to see if Clark's hype would fade. But the hype was already here. Instead of building Clark's momentum, Nike left her on the sidelines. And then Adidas came swooping in, capitalizing on the opportunity Nike ignored. And when Adidas's offer hit Nike's radar, did Nike respond with a bigger, better deal? Nope. They went straight to the lawyers. Nike filed a lawsuit accusing Adidas of poaching Clark. Think about that for a second. The biggest sports brand in the world spent more time in courtrooms than in promoting their own rising star. Fans couldn't help but notice the irony. Adidas was offering Clark a vision for the future, while Nike was tangled up in legal paperwork. For Clark and her growing fan base, Adidas was starting to look like the brand that got it. Meanwhile, Nike's panic only made Adidas look smarter, bolder, and more forward-thinking. Realizing they were losing ground, Nike finally snapped into action. Promotions, bonuses, campaigns, all of it suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Nike even rushed to speed up the release timeline for Clark's shoe. But the move felt less like a strategy and more like a mad scramble. Fans noticed. Nike's sudden shift came across as forced, like they were playing catch-up in overtime. While Nike's efforts to highlight Clark were a step in the right direction, the question hung in the air. Had they waited too long? Adidas had already shown Clark and the world that they were willing to take her brand seriously. Nike was now fighting to prove the same, but the clock was ticking. Nike's deal with Caitlin Clark, $28 million over 8 years, was supposed to be groundbreaking. But then the comparisons started rolling in. Victor Wembanyama, another Nike athlete, signed a staggering $100 million deal. The numbers didn't sit well with fans or analysts. Here was Caitlin Clark, a player changing the game in women's basketball, being offered a fraction of Wembanyama's deal. Was the industry truly ready to back women's sports, or was this just empty talk? Adidas's bold move highlighted the gap. They showed they were ready to invest big, while Nike's offer suddenly looked hesitant and underwhelming. Nike had the perfect front row seat to her breakout, yet somehow they missed the moment. Instead of making Clark the face of women's basketball, Nike chose to prioritize WNBA MVP A'ja Wilson's signature shoe. Now, Wilson is an incredible athlete who absolutely deserves her own line, but the timing couldn't have been worse. When the news broke, social media erupted. Fans, analysts, and even sports legends like Billie Jean King voiced their disappointment. Everyone was asking the same question. Did Nike not understand what they had in Caitlin Clark? Every tweet and post added fuel to the fire, turning Nike's misstep into a full-blown PR nightmare. For a brand built on backing sports legends like Michael Jordan, missing the boat on Clark sent shockwaves through the industry. It wasn't just about selling shoes anymore. It became a conversation about respect, visibility, and what Clark represented for the future of the game. Fans didn't hold back, making it clear that they wanted Clark's talent and influence to be fully recognized. This entire situation exposed how much sports marketing has changed. Athletes today don't want to just be a face on a billboard or a logo on a shoe. They want partnerships, real control and ownership of their brands. For Clark, this wasn't just about signing with Nike. It was about shaping her identity as a player and a leader. Nike's traditional top-down approach clashed with what modern athletes expect. Today, players have massive social media followings and direct connections with their fans. They can drive conversations and demand partnerships that align with their values. This new reality is reshaping the industry, And Nike learned the hard way what happens when brands don't move with the times. Realizing their mistake, Nike suddenly went into overdrive. They rushed Clark's shoe release and rolled out new marketing campaigns to win back fans. She began appearing in more Nike promos, and the company tried to reignite excitement around her brand. But for many fans, it felt like a last-ditch effort. The question now is, can Nike rebuild the trust they lost? It's not just Clark's trust at stake, it's Nike's reputation. For decades, they've been the gold standard in sports branding, but they dropped the ball on one of the biggest rising stars in basketball. Competitors like Adidas were paying attention, using this fumble as a roadmap to connect more deeply with athletes. Nike's blunder is a wake-up call for the entire sports industry. Athletes today hold more power than ever before. They're not waiting around for brands to decide what's best for them. Clark's story proves that players can drive their own narratives and demand more meaningful partnerships. For Nike, this incident is a lesson in adapting to the modern sports market. Their old way of doing things doesn't work anymore, especially with a new generation of athletes who expect brands to align with their vision. If Nike wants to avoid making the same mistake again, they'll need to rethink how they approach athlete partnerships. As for Caitlin Clark, her journey is far from over. She's not just a star on the court, she's a symbol of where sports marketing is headed. Athletes now have the power to call the shots, and brands will have to keep up or risk being left behind. So what's your take on this high-stakes rivalry? Will Nike bounce back, or has Adidas set a new standard? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more breaking stories like this. Stay tuned because the game is far from over.